Hi, I'm Ed Garcia, and I'm 86 years of age. I try to slow that down, but unfortunately, as one of the kind of little proverbs that says that when you're young, the years are long and the days are short, but when you get older, the years are short and the days are long. I grew up in New York City in lovely ghetto section called Spanish Harlem. A lot of not high-rise buildings, but five-story buildings without elevators, of course. My parents were from a Hispanic background. We were poor. They were really people that just worked very hard as laborers, had very, very little education. So that my aspirations for becoming some kind of a white-collar worker were just not there as a child. These were the kind of things that I remember as a child, but not with regret. These are the things that I remember as a child that I think that gave me the kind of strength and the kind of self-perseverance that I think that most people say, how could you have ever been happy in an environment like that? And the question is that it really gave you a sense of being able to take care of yourselves, regardless of the gangs that were there and regardless of the poverty that was there. But the kind of memories that I had were just really very important.
What helped make the transition from those days to today when you're an accomplished professional person?
Believe it or not, what has made my life change from just being this poor blue-collar worker to maybe a professional person has been people. I never felt as though I could do really anything other than just work with my hands, but people may have seen something in me and pushed me. In my education, I quit school in junior high school. I never went to high school in my life, and I have 2 graduate degrees, and I've been a fellow of the Albert Ellis Institute in New York, where I learned to be a psychotherapist. One of the things that I think happened in my life was when a professor at New York University, where I went to school, said, you know, there's something called a marginal man. And I said, gee, what's that? And he said, a marginal man is a person that comes from one socioeconomic group and then goes into another socioeconomic group. And the difference is that he never wants to go back to where he came from, but he never feels comfortable where he is at this point in life. And even at age 85, I still feel that way because my roots and my heritage and the feelings that I had as a child are always still there. I started playing handball outside in New York, and New York is well known for some very fine handball players. And even as a young adult, I remember that even in the winter time, we used to chip the ice in Van Cortlandt Park just so that we could play. And now I think that when I moved here to Atlanta, I started playing racquetball maybe some 10, 15 years ago, a very exciting thing. I think that as I started growing older, some of the people would look and say, some of the younger people would look, 40-year-olds, and say, hey, you're doing good. How old are you guys? And I would say, I'm in my 80s. And they would be absolutely bewildered. How can somebody in their 80s play racquetball? But we gave each other something, because when I played with them, they gave me the motivation to really elevate my game so that I could really play with them. And I gave them the inspiration that in 40 years, they could still believe that they could still play racquetball. So intergenerational activities and friendships offer an awful lot to the older person as well as the younger person. Even with younger people, I'm a mentor. I'm a mentor at the Emory Medical School, where they're asking their first year students, medical students, physical therapy, nursing students, they're asking their first year students to get a mentor so that they could learn more about us old fogies, okay? And I think that it's so important for them to do so, because I get a 21-year-old and I say to them, you know, when were you born? You were born, what, maybe 1990 or 1995? I was born in 1929. What do you know about 1929 and 1990? What sort of things can I tell you that was what I call, we have BC, we have AD, and I call this third generation kind of years, I call it life before McDonald's. So that, because believe me, a lot of young people don't believe that there was life before McDonald's.
What advice would you give to the younger generation coming along?
Oh, what advice would I give the younger generation? Oh my, what a question. The thing that comes to mind is time. Recently, my wife gave me an 85th birthday, and she asked me if I would talk. And I hate to do this kind of stuff, but I said, okay, I would. And I gave a little talk to the people that were there, and I said, let me tell you about 85. If we're talking about the temperature, 85 is kind of warm. If we're talking about driving a car, that means that you're driving a little bit too fast. But when you're talking about age, people who are 85 are very much different than each other. But there's one thing that we all have in common, and that is time. Because when you're young, you live like you're immortal. I'm going to do this in 5 years, 10 years, maybe I'm going to get married, I'm going to change my job, I'm going to retire when I get to be 65, blah, blah, blah. And what they don't realize, that when we at 85 are reminiscing and we're thinking about things that happened 20 years ago, and somebody says to you, you know, I have memories like that, and it was just like yesterday. And I say, yeah, it was like yesterday. It seems like yesterday. And then I stop for a moment and I say, do I really think that I have 20 more years? Hell no, I don't. So now I have to start living my life for today. Living my life not so much for the things that we felt were important, like success. Success baloney. Now, it's the sense of fulfillment, the things that I want to do rather than the things that I have to do. And so living like a mortal is something that I would give advice to young people. Don't think that you're going to be living forever. Now it goes in one ear and out the other, but at least I've said it to them. That time and living for the moment is so basically important for all of us who are alive today. I admired artwork, but never thought of myself ever being able to do it. And it wasn't until I was in my 60s when I used to just doodle, not with a pencil, but by bending paper clips. And I'd say to myself, gosh, those are kind of like interesting shapes. I wonder what they would look like if they were large. And a friend of mine, I think half as a joke, delivered 20-foot rebars for me to change and to bend into the same shapes that I would a paper clip. Big joker. Anyway, that attracted my attention, and I went into a fabrication shop, and there was a wonderful young man, a wonderful artist whom I still know today and who is my very good friend. And he showed me how to weld and how to grind and how to do all sorts of things. So I started very late in life to begin to do some metal sculptures. So it started from travel and appreciation for artwork, collecting some of it, and then to be able to do some things. And my latest joy at this point has been in the area of photography. And here again, sometimes the connections become so strange. In teaching a class, there was a wonderful quote by Carlos Castaneda. And the quote, and I'm paraphrasing, it goes something like this: the person has the ability to both look and see. They can see the kind of wonderful miracles in the universe, or they can just look at the world that they see in front of them. Now, not one is any better than the other, but to look and not to see is such a waste of what can be done. And I found myself being the kind of a person that really looked at life, but never saw it. And when I started doing sculpting, and now as I do photography, I begin to see things that I never bothered to look at before. I see shapes, I see textures, I see colors, I see form. I see things that become very exciting in my life, whether I have my camera with me or not. But here again are things that then say, now that I see these things, I would like to capture them. And photography has become a very, very exciting thing for me to want to do here in my later life, and something that you can do as you grow older. Life is always filled with change. And people, even though we hate change because we seem to fear the unknown, change happens, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not, or whether you're afraid of it or not. We can use it as an opportunity. And I think that with the help of a lot of people, I use it as an opportunity to change from not being aware of or caring very much about things like literature and art and music and poetry, that as I grew older, I began to realize how important and how I'm finding the word, how in a sense of wonderment all of these things came by going to school, by learning, by meeting educated people, and so on and so forth. I liked to teach, and I do now at the Lifelong Learning Institute at Emory University, doing some workshops at the Renaissance, which is a place for independent living for older people and assisted living people. But all of the things that I like to teach are things about life and life experiences. Things like, what is respect? What is fear? What is sadness? What sort of things is friendship? How do we make friends? How do we keep friends? How do we lose friends? All sorts of things that people can connect with and identify in life.
How would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? So I come to think of that it isn't what we say to people necessarily, and it isn't what we do, but it's how we make people feel that is really important in life. So if I'm to be remembered, I hope that I have made people feel and motivated them to live their lives in a way that is both creative and helpful and most of all wise to other people in this world.